as far as like long-term scenarios, short-term scenarios, what would you consider like long-term? Because with me, I think of sort of anything over a month. And when you're talking years and years, I think you're talking way far beyond that we can even prepare for, because there's so many different variables in that time frame. But what are your thoughts on like what would you consider a long term?
What would constitute? So honestly, the hurricanes I would consider like a short term, right? You're usually looking 2 weeks before things settle down. The Rona, even though the disease, you can debate how severe it actually was. That whole experience, that was a
Yeah.
little bit more of a midterm, right? That was 6 months, a year, depending where you live. We get into it with Vlad or Z. That could be a longer term. I think inflation and economic issues and lack of food would be more of a dangerous long term thing, because it's going to linger, even if it's not a complete
Yeah.
crash. We haven't seen the effects of all the poultry that were destroyed from the avian exposure earlier in the year. We haven't seen the impacts of the lack of fertilizer. A lot of what we're eating in the stores now was harvested in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
2023 is where we're going to reap the benefit or the misfortune of what happened this year. So that I look as a longer term issue, because it's going to string out. It's just going to drag on for a while. And if the leaders don't make the right calls, they'll make it much worse. And that's going to start causing issues.
The leaders make the right calls. Yeah. Don't hold your breath on that one.
No.
That's why I'm not too worried about aliens, because if aliens fly by and they see the Yahoos running the show down here, they're just going to keep going.
Yeah, well, no, I don't think they'd want to be here. They'd be like, no,
Yeah.
stay off. They'll wind up killing you too. Just
Yeah.
we're flying through the bad neighborhood of space. Let's just move on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about either, is the food shortages thing, the things that are almost, I don't want to say, 100% going to happen here in the next year or so, but there are a lot of things that are just really highly likely. The inflation, I don't think, is going anywhere. The food shortages, like you were talking about with the fertilizers, we haven't seen the impact of that stuff. And I don't think a lot of people pay attention to that, because they go to the store, they get their food, they get their meal, and that's all they think about. But that is absolutely something that is going to be, say, next year at this time, that stuff starts becoming issues. People are going to be like, "How did this happen?" And then they're going to try to blame the Yahoos up top, and it should have been something that the Yahoos at top should have seen coming. And done something about, and the people at the bottom should have saw coming and done something about. So.
And you also have to think, governments will not admit when they screw up, right? It doesn't matter who's in office. They like to kind of, get reelected. But when you have Bloomberg, Fidelity, Chase, all predicting major recession, which I think we're already in a recession.
Me too.
Academically speaking, we've already checked the boxes. But let's say they're calling it a major recession. When the companies and the CEOs are saying it out loud, I don't take that very lightly, because if you're a financial analyst and you cry wolf and you screw up a lot, you get fired, right? You're going to cause somebody to lose millions or billions of dollars. You're not going to stick around. So it's risky for them personally to say, our stock's going to take a hit. We need to be in a cash position. We need to be ready for recession or depression. So when you have the CEOs openly saying it, knowing their stocks will take a hit, and that's their job, right? To create value and equity for the stockholders. I take that as he's putting his head on the chopping block, right? He's putting himself out there. Then that means he's really convinced something's going on. And I think that's what we're going to see this coming year.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the pundits say.
Yeah. And then you put on top of that all the other stuff. You've got the just, to me, it seems like reckless spending and just, printing money like there's no tomorrow. You've got Putin and his antics, and who knows who knows what to believe with that. I've read some stuff recently about him talking about Ukraine wanting to do some sort of false flag thing with the dirty bomb and then
Right.
blame them, and who knows? I mean, maybe I wouldn't put it past us to do something either. So
No,
uh, it's
no. There's been a lot of debate in my circle and some of my friends about what exactly happened in Nord Stream. Uh,
yeah,
you know, because
we've
that
gone over
wasn't,
that. Yeah,
somebody blows up a bridge, right? It could be a knucklehead in a car with, you know, explosive. He drives up, boom, there you go. But to do that to a large, thick wall pipeline that was under cement, under the ocean, under a sea, and you did what you did, that took some technical knowledge.
hmm,
But who would benefit?
yeah,
I could see it going multiple ways. We benefit because now it forces Europe's hands. Russia benefits because it pisses people off. Who take your pick.
yeah. Well, Poland, because Poland has got their own little pipeline going on or whatever. I think
Oh
it's
yeah,
Poland.
true.
Brian is 100% convinced it was us or the UN, a cabal of the quote unquote us that is doing it for that exact type of reason. But I don't know, but it wasn't I know that it wasn't some environmental group or anything like that, because it just seems like it would take too much expertise to do what they did to it. And I don't
Yeah.
see Russia benefiting from it. So I didn't buy that line when it was there, but
No.
um,
I
it,
mean, you could stretch some scenarios, but at the end of the day, they funded a lot of it. It was in
yeah,
their best interest to be able to hold that over Europe's head.
yeah, yeah,
So, hell, China could have benefited from it. Oh, I'm going to go piss off everyone in the West, and then I'm going to do something over here nobody's going to like.
yeah.
There's so many ways to look at it.
I honestly think that, and I don't know, this is just my opinion, so YouTube don't, don't freak out on me, but I honestly think that there is, whether you're talking about the UN, the European Union, the United States, or all that, I really do think they want this to escalate, and that could have been something that kind of pushed this. That could have been a reason they were to do
Yeah.
something like that, was to kind of escalate this situation, because I think it would serve everybody, all of these countries, better if the dude was just gone. And it
Yeah.
would probably serve his people better too, because the dude's just a dirtbag, but just evil. But I think I think that's the intentionality of a lot of this stuff, that we get the support Ukraine and this and that, but I think there's a bigger game going on than
Oh,
you and
yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. And we can speculate. I mean, we can armchair general that over an entire bottle of bourbon and not come up with a conclusion.
Yeah.
Um, how was it? I think it was Orwell who said that countries go to war if the rich will profit,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. And truthfully, a lot of people would benefit from a war. I mean, even look at Vietnam. Was it Lady Bird Johnson owned huge amounts of stock in Bell Helicopter, which provided most of the Army helicopters for the war? Um, I mean, again, 1960s, 70s conspiracy, but still, uh, there are a lot of players who would benefit from it. What concerns me is the arrogance that they think they'll be immune,
Mm-hmm.
because history has also shown that doesn't always happen. The Tsar and Marie Antoinette and King Louis and all of them, they thought they were above the law until the guillotine showed up and they got their heads cut off and they kicked their dog down the street and whatever. Um, it's what concerns me. It's like someone pushing a shopping cart full of groceries and they lose control of it. And now they're chasing the damn cart down the parking lot before it hits something, and then the groceries are all over. And I think we're at that point where the guy's chasing the cart down the parking lot already, and
Yeah.
it could spin out of control, whether it's done deliberately or by accident. It just takes one young commander to misinterpret a radar signature or think I'm going to get overrun, put that green shell in the cannon, and the green shell turns out to be a tactical nuke. Oops, he didn't get permission. He wasn't ordered to. He made a field judgment. Somebody's going to screw up.
Yeah.
And that's what concerns me.
Yeah.
And the arrogance of the leaders and the elites who think they'll be immune to the consequences. Uh, like you said, if it's 3, 4, 5 years of ugliness, you better have a damn big bunker. And I don't know if there's a bunker big enough for that.
Yeah. Well, and that analogy sort of fits with what's going on here at home as well, because it does seem like they have that idea that more so than ever in my lifetime anyway, that they have this idea they're above us, they're separate from us, and I mean us as United States citizens. You've got the mainstream media, you've got corporations, and you've got government that are all like on this a totally different planet than the rest of us, and just playing this different game. And I think, like you talked about that shopping cart, they play this game and they get arrogant and they feel like that, nothing can touch them. But it's if history's any guide, it does reach that tipping point with civilizations, that it does get there. I don't know what that means as far as, when here, but it sure seems like it got close a little while ago, and it wouldn't take much to kick something like that off. A few things here and there, and all of a sudden it becomes something huge.
Yeah. And I wonder if the 1/6 investigation is being done with such vigor, not just for political points in an election year, but I think it scared the hell out of some of them.
Yeah, scared.
Because a bunch of idiots who had no firearms basically rioted in our capital and almost overran it. And they broke a bunch of stuff. I mean, I think it was stupid what they did, but they were pissed off and they lost control of the crowd. And it happened like that.
Yeah.
And by the same token, who's to say an entity or even a foreign entity doesn't decide we're going to go and tear up whatever important building somewhere? I think that shocked a lot of them into realizing, oh, and that may be why they've had such vigor going after these rioters is because it scared them.
I think part of it is they just don't want that Trump in there, that outsider in there, or any outsider for that matter. But I absolutely agree with you, because they saw what a bunch of people with luckily no weapons could do. And they kind of walked into their bubble, right? So I'm sure they're thinking kind of like when you almost, like you're driving and you almost like hit a deer, or you almost get in a car wreck, and that sinking feeling like, oh crap, that almost happened. Yeah. That's probably exactly how they felt, like, oh crap. And it's interesting that when it comes to protecting themselves, they put up fences, they call the National Guard. When it comes to us and cities burning and all that stuff, it's not a big deal. Come into their house, it's a game changer.
Yeah. And I think that was a sign. I think when the president of Sri Lanka fled the country and then they were partying in his pool, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
Not that I endorse civil unrest, but I mean, if you're going to do it with style, right? And they're drinking $1,000 champagne and, tequila in this pool. And I was like, it's a house of cards in a lot of places. And I don't think they realize, and that's again what scares me, the arrogance of some of these leaders, and that, oh, you don't mess with us. If it gets bad enough, people don't have anything to lose. And keep in mind, soldiers and policemen have families too. Their kids can go hungry too. So, hopefully it doesn't come to that. I go back to what I said before, it won't be the same everywhere if it's a long-term issue.
Yeah.
Different areas will react very differently.